the Haskell is not the only big 3-year-old race of the weekend. Of course, you have to look up towards your neck of the woods, at least your summertime home here, and that's Saratoga. I will get on my soapbox a little bit here. I'm looking at the fields for Friday's Curlin, Saturday's Jim Dandy. I see 6 horses entered in the Curlin on Friday. I see 5 horses entered in the Jim Dandy on Saturday. And, of course, there's 1 horse cross-entered. That's Re-Ride for Steve Asmussen. So at the most, we're going to have 10 horses running in these 2 stakes, both for 3-year-olds, same distance, 1 day apart. Matt, why isn't the Curlin maybe an undercard race for the Travers? Why is it run the day before the Jim Dandy?
Yeah, I think that issue needs to be examined. 3 races restricted to the 3-year-olds on 3 consecutive days. The last few years has not resulted in big fields. The Jim Dandy has been a smallish field for the past 2-3 years as far as I can remember. So I'm not sure if there's the need for that. Although I guess ideally, the Curlin, which is a race that's restricted to horses that have not won a stakes race going a mile or more, is an opportunity for a horse to step up in an easier spot and prepare for possibly in the Travers. But on the other hand, in today's world and the road to the Derby, it just doesn't seem like we have many of those kind of horses left over. And why not at this point take a shot in the Jim Dandy? Because the horses that are in the Jim Dandy, some of them, could even qualify for the Curlin. So, yeah, I think the racing secretaries will have to take a look at that.
There you go, Matt. I'm glad you're in agreement with me. I know people don't want to see 5-horse fields in these nice stakes races at Saratoga. Let them run in the Jim Dandy. The Curlin can be, like I said, an undercard race on the Travers. The Jim Dandy is suffering for it. I know they want to create a springboard, keep horses at Saratoga, springboard to the Travers, but they're really hurting the Jim Dandy as much as anything, and the Jim Dandy deserves better. This year's Jim Dandy, having said that, we have a field of 5, and there's some good horses in there. In fact, there are no bums about it in this year's Jim Dandy, led by Vino Rosso, the Wood Memorial winner, tenfold, who ran a very good race in the Preakness. You got stakes winners in Flame Away. Sporting Chance was a Grade 1 winner at Saratoga as a 2-year-old for D. Wayne Lucas. And Re-Ride is still an interesting horse, having competed at Dubai early this year. Yeah,
in some ways, the Jim Dandy is similar to the Haskell in that I think we're going to have a big favorite, and in the Jim Dandy, that's probably going to be Vino Rosso. But I feel like in the Jim Dandy, there's a lot more question marks in this field in terms of Vino Rosso dominating compared to Good Magic in the Haskell. We got several horses that ran in at least one of the Triple Crown races. And we got to know on the Derby Trail, Flame Away, for instance, we remember on the Derby Trail was Mr. Consistent, racing on all kinds of different surfaces in his early career and coming up with some big wins. But recently he set the pace in the Ohio Derby and faded to finish 6th in there. And before that, he was 13th in the Kentucky Derby. So we'll have to see if his trainer, Mark Cassie, has got him ready to turn that around and have a bigger performance in there. Tenfold is one of 2 for Steve Asmussen, and Tenfold was 5th in the Belmont and 3rd in the Preakness and 5th in the Arkansas Derby after winning his first 2 races at Oaklawn Park. So here's a horse that did well in a couple of jewels of the Triple Crown. There's no Justify in here. So is this a race where if he runs his best, he could win it? I think for sure. You mentioned Re-Ride, who ran a really nice 3rd in the UAE Derby behind Mendelssohn, but Mendelssohn didn't turn out to do as well in his subsequent dirt starts. So what does that mean? We know Steve Asmussen has a way with these Derby kind of horses, and in that they can tend to get better as the year goes on with him. So there's Reride if he decides to go in the Jim Dandy. Sporting Chance for the coach, D. Wayne Lucas. And let's not forget, Brian, at the beginning of Sporting Chance's career, there were 2 wins at Saratoga. So we know that Sporting Chance likes the surface at the Spa, but with little time off and training, hopefully D. Wayne Lucas has got Sporting Chance over some of his difficulties down the stretch and his shying away from the whip. We know he's got talent, but there we are with Vino Rosso and Todd Pletcher. Brian, you and I both liked him heading into the Kentucky Derby, and he ran well getting 9th, and he was 4th in the Belmont. Maybe he could have gotten 3rd with a little different strategy, and we liked Vino Rosso off his Wood Memorial win. I still feel if we get the best Vino Rosso that he's going to be hard to beat in the Jim Dandy, but I'm not sure how confident I am that we'll see that Wood Memorial winner's best in here.
Yeah, Vino Rosso, I'm not sure he'll be a heavy favorite. Looking at Tenfold's last 2 races, very good, and certainly they were 4th and 5th in the Belmont. Vino Rosso, of course, had to make an earlier move at Justify that day. I think that took him out of his desired running style. Rapoli, of course, being his owner, being a little upset about the ride of the other horse he got in that race and wanted to set it up a little bit more for Vino Rosso. He had to do some dirty work, and then he couldn't hold off Hofburg for 3rd, or Gronkowski for that matter. So he finished 4th in the Belmont. I've been kind of a fan of this horse all along. The son of Curlin is a horse I think that could still have bigger things ahead of him. Nice win in the Wood Memorial, and that field kind of reminds me of this field a little bit. Although in the Wood Memorial, he got speed to run at, and I'm not sure he's going to get much of a pace to run at here. You know, there are some types who flame away for sure, who like to be on or near the lead in here. So hopefully it'll be a reasonable pace for Vino Rosso. I have a feeling he's the best horse, but I'm not even confident in that with Tenfold. Tenfold's only run 5 times in his life. The Preakness obviously was very good, and then the Belmont was a huge ask after such a lightly raced path to a good Preakness. So Tenfold is interesting. Not sure what we're going to see from Reride. Flame Away, as you said, his recent races have not been as good. So I'm sure he'll be out there and maybe he bounces back. Sporting Chance actually is a little bit more interesting to me. D. Wayne Lucas, runner, as you said, he's like Saratoga, keeps trying him in good races, and he's run decently enough to expect something from Sporting Chance if he, as you said, puts it all together mentally. Again, though, I'm not big on this race. I expect Reride to run in this race, by the way, given that it's only a 5-horse race. So I would think he would go in the Jim Dandy and not the Curlin wheel. We'll have to wait till Friday to know for sure. But to me, Sporting Chance might be the one that could pop in, but the favorites look tough. Vino Rosso, Tenfold. I'm siding with Vino Rosso just because I've liked him more, but he might be at a pace disadvantage. So should be interesting to see. If nothing else, this race is a prep for the Travers, and if it's a real paceless race, it might be a race that just sets up horses for the Saratoga's biggest race, the Travers.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that analysis in there. I think if Vino Rosso runs well, he might be tough to beat, but again, I'm not real confident. The Jim Dandy hasn't been particularly kind to favorites the last few years also. So it'll be an interesting race to bet. Yeah.
And while we're talking about the 3-year-old races at Saratoga, I talked about the disappointment of the field size with the Curlin and the Jim Dandy. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Travers favorite, and there have been Travers winners to come out of the Curlin, but if the Travers favorite this year comes out of the Curlin, and that's if, of course, Hofburg runs his best race. Now, he's yet to win a stakes race, but he went from that nice maiden win in March to running second in the Florida Derby. and he a really well closing 7th in the Kentucky Derby with trouble. And then he was 3rd in the Belmont. So Hofburg, well-bred son of Tapit for trainer Bill Mott, certainly is the class of this small field, which I think will be a 5-horse field now for the Curlin. And I want to see what Hofburg can do. He might have pace disadvantage just like Vino Rosso, but against this field, I think he should dominate, and an impressive win by here. Maybe only Good Magic would be the horse that could be bet below him. If Good Magic wins the Haskell, then Hofburg might be the second choice. But he could be the Travers favorite. I expect him to win at low odds on Friday. Maybe we'll see Hofburg, Vino Rosso, and Good Magic set something up nicely for the Travers.
Yeah, I think that Bill Mott was looking to give Hofburg, get him a victory, give him a confidence builder when he opted for the Curlin over the Jim Dandy and head into the Travers, which we've known has been the goal for Hofburg for the past few months.